What's up, guys? So I was asked to speak on finance and investing. And I'm not an expert in that field. That's not typically what I talk about here. We're usually talking about strength and conditioning and nutrition and things of that nature. However, I'm 39 years old and I am in a position where when my son graduates, he's 11 years old right now, he's got 6 more years of school. I'm in a pretty good position to never have to work for anybody else again. And really close to, if I didn't want to work, I could probably be okay without generating any income actively. And my passive income would be okay. And if I sold out everything right now, I could probably retire like in Vietnam or something like that. I've got my ducks sort of in a row. I own a couple properties that cash flow. I've got a couple retirement accounts. My bank account. I've got a little bit of cash that I use for things. Sometimes buying, selling, trading, bartering. I've got access to six figures in liquid. I'm ahead of most of my peers. I'm certainly not rich or anything like that, but I've set myself up to, not have to work for my entire life. And I honestly didn't get started as soon as, I probably could have or should have. It's never too late. You can always get started. Right now is the best time to start. So let's just start with step one. The very first thing you can do is lower your cost of living, your expenses. We should be striving to make more money, and that's a thing. But if you want to give yourself an immediate raise, audit yourself, audit your spending. I guarantee you're going to find hundreds of dollars that you could be going without or not spending on dumb shit. It happens. When we went to put my son in a private school, he's back in public school now. But when we initially went to put him in a private school, we had to budget and pinch some pennies. I was still married to his mother at the time. I'm currently not, and he lives with me. I have custody. He's with me almost 100% of the time. I take care of all his expenses and everything too. So, not that I treat him like an expense, but he is an expense. And when he graduates and moves on and stuff, that'll probably be my biggest expense gone. Or he'll be here working, and he'll still be welcome to live in my house, but he'll have to contribute to the bills, which will help me not have to work as much anyway. But I audited what my expenses were, and I was spending $100 a week on candy bars and energy drinks. $100 a week, and you have to scale that shit up. Even $100 a week, that's eye opening. That's $5,200 a year. Think of like how many months of rent is that? Or, $5,200. Even today, you can buy a decent used car. An economical, decent used car. I drive an economical, decent used car that I bought for $5,500. So right there, I drive an '06 Prius. That's a lot of money. And even if you look at something, that you can save $20 a week, that's over $1,000 a year. Again, maybe that's 1 month of rent, but still, that's a month of rent knocked off. That's, how many electric bills is that? And that's how you've got to think of things. You have to scale it out. I've found that scaling it out really opens your eyes. Because like I said, $10 a week is $520 a year. $20 a week, you're $1,040. Now you're over $1,000. $20 a week. You don't think about $20 a week a lot of times when it's happening. But in the grand scheme of things, that all adds up. And there's likely like multiple little bits and bobs here and there that, there's $20 a week on this that you're spending, or $10 on that, $5 a week on that. And next thing you know, that is $100 a week, $5,000. Maybe a little more. That's close to maxing out a Roth IRA for a year. We'll get to that in a little bit. But those little bits add up. And that's the first thing you should do. Right now, pick the first of whatever month or the next 30-day period or whatever the case may be. Keep every receipt. Or you guys, that's what I did. I kept paper receipts of everything. But I know now with banking apps and stuff, but really look on your app, look at your monthly statement, whatever the case may be, and look at every single thing you spent. Because a lot of those little $2, $3, $4, $5, and I know us in the lifting community, energy drinks, pre-workouts, and things like that. You can get by with a lot cheaper substitutes there. Caffeine pills are a cheat code for saving money and not necessarily having to give up pre-workout caffeine. But anyway, audit yourself. Check your expenses. And that's the little bits and bobs. There's big things you can save on. We talked about rent. Like, how many months of rent does this save? What's your living situation? Are you living with your parents and not paying rent? Fantastic. You're winning. Do not be in a rush to move out. You're doing great. If you are out on your own, do you have your own place? Can you get roommates? Can you cut that rent in half? Is it a 3-bedroom? Can you get a couple roommates? Can you cut your rent by 66%? Now we're talking about paying $1,000 a month down to $333 a month. Now you're saving $700 a month almost. That's huge. If you're not living with roommates and you're young, you're doing it wrong. Like you can cut so much money down there. Your transportation situation. If you live in a big city, maybe that has great public transportation, or is a good walking town, you can live within walking distance of all of the necessities, or even bicycling distance, and you can get by without having a car. Another huge expense, out the door. Be it the one-time purchase of buying a used car in cash or car payments. That's another big saver. If you can knock that expense out, that's fucking great. Okay, so I've gone the cheap used car route. I drive an '06 Prius. It gets 45 miles a gallon. I pay $18 a month in insurance on it. Now I do only have liability insurance, so if somebody who was uninsured fucked me up, or if a tree fell in my car or something, I'm kind of screwed, and I'd have to come out of pocket. I have the emergency fund to take care of that. Okay, and to date, I've not had any at-fault accidents or anything of that nature to need to use my insurance. So I've already saved enough to buy my car probably 2 or 3 times by only having liability insurance on it. And again, this is another reason I buy and drive cheap used cars. It's, I'm not too worried about it. I even, I'm not afraid to buy a car that the paint job's a little messed up or it's already got a couple dents on it, as long as it's mechanically fine. And then even more, I get a better deal on it because it does have those blemishes. And then when I'm parked at the grocery store, I don't get, if somebody fucking dings into it with their opening their door or a shopping cart or whatever, it's already got dents. Not a big deal. Now, I do have a classic car. I have a 1955 Chevy that I do care more about, and I do have full coverage insurance on it. However, classic car insurance is very, very cheap, if you didn't know, and you declare a value on it, and it's covered for that value replacement. And it's an appreciating asset. It's not a liability. You buy these new cars, make a new payment, new sports car, it depreciates when it comes off the lot. If you're young, you probably don't know how to handle these cars, and high probability of you wrecking. Your insurance is going to be expensive as fuck. But anyway, if you have to have a car, buy a early 2000s Toyota or Honda. They're great cars. If you know a little bit about cars, you can take your chances on a marketplace and go look at them yourself. go take them. You can go to a shop and get them inspected by a mechanic. Even if you have to go to like a used car lot, and you might not get as great of a deal. Generally speaking, those late 2000 or early 2000s Hondas, Toyotas, pretty fucking bulletproof, get great fuel mileage, etc. My Prius, the big issue with those is the hybrid battery. They typically last 10 to 12 years, give or take. However, there is a specialist in my area that installs refurbed hybrid batteries in these cars for $900. Getting a new one and replaced is going to be like $6-7 grand or something like that. He does them for $900, refurbs them with a year warranty. I bought my car from a guy who had just had that done. It was like a month after the year warranty went out. My hybrid battery started acting up, so I still have the invoice. And I called the dude and I said, "Hey, I've got a Prius. This is what it's doing." He said, "Oh yes, the battery." He didn't know me at that point. He said, I do them for $900 with a year warranty, and if it's a car that I've already done each subsequent time, I do the refurb battery for $450 with a year warranty. So this I got it replaced with a refurb battery for $450. Super nice guy. And then the only other maintenance I've had to do on it, I had to the inverter pump went bad, so it's got a second kind of water pump for the hybrid battery, and I did that myself. If you're, and I'm not like no ASE certified mechanic, but if you're just a little bit mechanically inclined and YouTube, you can do most minor repairs on vehicles. So the part was like $110. I've had the car almost 2 years now, and other than basic stuff, I had to put brakes on it, which is normal wear and tear, and I had to buy tires, which is normal wear and tear. But that's the only maintenance I've had to do on the car. It's 45 miles a gallon. And again, even with having to pay the $450 on the refurb battery, throw another $100 for that inverter pump, and I did that myself. What's that? $550 for a lot of people. That's a car payment or 2 car payments or whatever. And this is a car I already have paid for, so I'm not paying monthly on it. So I would go that route. I know this is getting long-winded. I'm sorry. Whatever. This is my experience. You guys can stick around and listen or not. But anyway, so your transportation situation, that's another place you can save. With this money that you're saving, food, I'm nutrition, strength and conditioning, gym gains. Chicken, rice, and broccoli, bro. It's fucking cheap. Bros have been getting jacked on chicken, rice, and broccoli for a long time. It's fucking cheap, too. Don't overcomplicate it. When you catch some beef on sale, grab some beef. And it goes on sale quite often. See right down there with the air fryer sitting on top of it, I have a deep freezer. You can cop one of those. You can look on Marketplace and you can probably get one used for like $50 if you have the space. When I catch beef or something on sale, or chicken or anything really, any big meats on sale, giggity, I'll stock up and buy a lump, spend up front at once, get my chicken breast for $1.59 a pound, and then fill my deep freezer with it, and I've got it for a while. But anyway, chicken, rice, and broccoli, even regular price, is cheap. Or just chicken, rice, and veggies. You can find cheap frozen veggies. Potatoes are cheap too. Bananas are cheap. There are a lot of healthy, nutritious foods that will fuel your gains and workout sessions that are cheap. You can save a lot of money by not going to fucking Chipotle every day. I promise you. And just a few seasonings. Again, YouTube is your friend. Learn how to season food. Once you get the basic concepts down, and you learn that you can throw as much chili powder, garlic powder, etc. on these things as you want. If you don't put a little dash of salt in there too, them flavors ain't gonna pop. Learn how to cook your fucking food. It's fucking delicious. I would rather eat my food 99 times out of 100 than go to the restaurant. Every now and then I like to go to the restaurant, a little razzle dazzle. But more often than not, I'd rather eat my food. I'd rather cook my own steak here. I do it better. It's not hard. It's not hard. Even if you are splurging a little bit, like you want a nice steak dinner, you go buy yourself a nice steak, baked potato, get some Kerrygold butter, maybe some asparagus. And even though some of these things are a little bit more expensive than the chicken, rice, and broccoli, bro, that dinner that you're going to cook for yourself, not only is it going to fucking taste better, if you just learn a little bit about cooking, it's going to be probably half the price, if not even less than half the price of going out to a shitty chain restaurant like an Outback or something and getting the same thing. And you're probably going to get a bigger steak too, that you buy yourself for cheaper. So save big money there. So the money you're saving, especially if you're young, start a Roth IRA. Please go Google any like compound interest calculator, Roth IRA calculators, etc. Play with the numbers a little bit. Put what if you max out your Roth IRA from the time you're 18 or 19, not even until retirement age, 63, 59, whatever. Do it till like 39, and just look what the numbers give you. 7, 8, 9, 10% return. Just play with it. It is astounding. Compound interest is fantastic, and the sooner you start taking advantage of it, the better. That's the one thing I wish I did sooner. If you have an employer, if you're working somewhere that has a retirement account set up, 401k, whatever, and they match, at very minimum, like put in what they'll max out what they're matching. Whatever percentage it is, 3, 4, 5, 6, or if it's a hard number every year, like match that. That's free money. I think I've got like 81 grand or so in my 401k right now through my work. Like 20 of that is my work money they put in. That's free fucking money. 20 grand that I got for free just for contributing. 20 grand, free money. Do that. And I've been with this company since 2011. So what are we talking about? 14 years or so? 14 years, give or take. That's a no-brainer. Like, max that out. And then, now with apps like Robinhood and things of that nature, I'm sure there's other investment apps. I use Robinhood for my Roth IRA. They match too. I think they match like 1% or whatever of your Roth IRA contributions. But, I put so much a month or a week in there. I put so much a week in my 401k through work, which the Roth IRA through Robinhood I just started earlier this year. Again, I wish I would have been doing that sooner too, but it is what it is. Again, never too late. Play with those calculators. I promise you, the numbers are eye-opening. And the sooner you can start a Roth IRA, the better. It's fucking fantastic. Let's talk about my real estate. I got pretty lucky, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie there. I got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I got some pretty good deals. I live in East Tennessee, especially before COVID. Properties around here were very, very cheap. So I wasn't as gung-ho as I am now with my savings and stuff, but I was living below my means. I always lived below my means, even when I was making like shit money. I made it a point to live below my means and have a little bit saved up for a rainy day, etc. So I was in the right place at the right time, and I overheard somebody talking about selling their duplex. This was 2016, maybe 2017. I can't remember. But I bought a duplex for $53,000. Already had renters in it. Not the best, it doesn't have central heat and air. It's an old brick building, but it is brick. I bought it for 53 grand. Again, through a stroke of luck, it was like a year after I bought it, they announced that they were building a Hard Rock casino and resort, like right across the street. So the value jumped up instantly. just with the speculation. And then even more so after COVID, which unfortunately, kind of fucked a lot of markets, but it made my property value go up. Places were selling like hotcakes during COVID. It was wild. And prices were going up and up and up. But I've held on to it at cash flows. But the thing with properties, you only have to have the down payment. That Roth IRA money that you're investing. If you were a gambler and you wanted to take a little bit of a chance, and you've been maxing it out for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever the case may be, you can pull out your contributions. You can't pull out the earnings early; you'll get penalized. You can pull out your contributions, and you see a property that you think, hey, this be a good long-term investment. Blah blah blah, whatever. That's there. Maybe you set aside another fund. Maybe you put it in a high yield savings account or something like that to help offset inflation a little bit. But if you're being frugal and putting back money, that's you can kind of take a chance. When I bought that duplex, it was like everything I had saved up at the time. Other than what was in my 401k. I didn't touch my 401k. But I didn't really have anything invested at the time. I, saved up, just, saving a dollar. I didn't really know a lot about investing. But yeah, I did. And it ended up working out so far. And kind of the good thing about it not having central heat and air is I don't have a heat pump to worry about. That's typically one of the biggest expenses when owning a house is when a heat pump goes out. My other house, I ended up buying another house a year later. It has a heat pump. And again, I got lucky. I overheard a conversation of one of my truck drivers wanting to sell a house to one of my other truck drivers. And then that other truck driver just wanted to flip it. And, a light bulb went off. And I was like, hey, why don't we work out a handshake agreement here that, the dude selling it will just sell it to me for a couple grand over what he was going to sell it to you for. And we'll have a gentleman's agreement that when I, pay him the money, like he'll give you that $2,000 difference. That way you don't have to put the house in your name or nothing. You don't have to pay capital gains taxes or anything like that. It skirts a lot of the paperwork out of the way, and, we'll all be, happy-go-lucky, and, we all agreed on it. I bought this house for $33,000. It was move-in ready. It just needed some cleanup. Again, East Tennessee, cheap. It's not a $33,000 house no more. When I first bought it, it appraised for like 52 when I bought it for 33. And now it's over a 6-figure house. So, I kind of got lucky. Sometimes you got to be in the right place at the right time. But the thing is, you have to have the capital when you're in these right places at the right time, or it doesn't matter anyway. So, I was there. I had the capital to make it happen. Of course, with a $33,000 house, it doesn't take quite as much for a down payment and shit to pay for that. So there's that. So, that's kind of what led me a lot to where I am. Let's also talk about side hustles. I think early on, especially when you're young and able-bodied, you can trade some time for money. A lot of people don't like to mow their yard. People don't like to move their own furniture. If you are skilled, handyman work can be a thing. Now, as we get older, time is something that we can't get back. So I think as we get older, we kind of want, money to buy us time. But early on, you're going to be fucking off with your friends anyway. You could be doing some of that good old manual labor, and you don't have to kill yourself. But, if you're a hard worker and you have that work ethic, certainly can. But even here and there, like an extra little $20 here, $30 there, $50, whatever the case may be, it all adds up. It can all contribute. I would look into that, and that's if you're unskilled. Like I said, if you are decent with tools, handyman stuff, you can probably charge a higher premium for your time. You can work on cars. A lot of people don't want to take their car to a mechanic. If you've got buddies, you can kind of help them with their cars and maybe charge them a little less than a mechanic would, but still charge a decent rate. And at the same time, you get to practice and hone your mechanic skills in a little bit more. I was fortunate. My first sort of side hustles, I used to move furniture back in the day, and I kind of squandered that. I had a good thing when I was young, but I didn't really realize it. Me and my brother had a furniture moving business that we kept under the table, and we'd clear, some weeks $1,500 a week a piece in cash, in like 2006, 2007, working 2 days a week. So we just partied the other 5 days and smoked weed and drank and did other nefarious activities instead of being smart with it. But you're going to be smart. But there's that. But like powerlifting, when I got into powerlifting, it was just for fun. I like being strong. But the longer I got into it, the more I had to learn about it. I bought some books. I had some coaches. I learned through experience. And then there's demand out there for people to teach others, to coach others. And I've kind of slid into that role by learning that skill. And that was never my intention. But I developed the skills and the communication abilities and the knowledge to be able to do that. So I'm not saying to get into a hobby with the goals of monetizing it, but I am saying, especially depending upon what the hobby is, a lot of these things can be monetized, and it's something that you enjoy doing anyway. So by all means, keep that in the back of your head. I know a decade ago I was flipping cars, doing that on the side. Since COVID happened, I've kind of lost my touch there. I don't really know what a great deal is on a car to flip anymore. It's not something where I wanted to buy cars that needed work and then fix them up and then sell them for profit. I was just looking to make money, when I buy the car, because I was buying it for a good deal. And I know I could not touch it, just buy it and resell it. But again, I don't, I don't know what's what anymore there. But there's hobbies like that. And, I'm a car guy. Like, I got to drive fun cars. I'd buy a car for $1,500, drive the balls off of it for a couple months, sell it for $2,000 or $2,500. It's a great time. So there's things like that out there. It leads me kind of to my next thing. There are certain hobbies where the purchases you make in said hobbies also hold monetary value. I do have some pew-pews, and they're as good as money in the bank. And I also live in a state where private sales among citizens is perfectly legal, should I ever want to sell them. Now, if you shoot them a lot, that's, every time you go bang, bang, you're like $1, $2, $3, $4, depending upon what caliber of gun you're shooting. I just said the G word. Don't demonetize me, YouTube. But there's things like that. That's money in the bank. I've got a bunch of retro games. I've got an NES, a Super Nintendo, a Nintendo 64, Game Boys, Game Boy Advances, games for all these systems. Those at this point, especially the Nintendo products, they hold their value, if not appreciate in value. And that's without even getting like super into like buying hard to find or rare games for the collectible aspect. Like, I play them all, but I like the idea of having things that I enjoy that also accumulate value. Like, there's, between all of my retro games and my guns, I said the G word again. trying to think in my head. I mean, there's probably roughly between $6,000 to $8,000 that I would have to sell them, of course, which I don't want to, but it's there. It's money in the bank. They don't lose value. At the very least, they're worth what they're worth. At best, they're appreciating assets, which is probably more likely. So there's things like that. Like I said, I have a classic car. I like cars. I have a classic car, 1955 Chevy Bel Air 210 sedan. It appreciates in value. It's only going up. It's money in the bank, and I've got it insured. Should something happen, I've got a declared value on it that it would be replaced. So it's not a liability. You see a lot of people on Instagram and influencers wanting to flex with car payments and stuff. I am probably financially better off than a lot of people with a lot bigger channels who make legit ad revenue. My ad revenue on YouTube is under $500 a year. It'll probably be even less this year because I've not been quite as active. But it's something. It's maybe I'll make a month's worth of rent on YouTube. Maybe. Probably not this year. But, even if I did, there's that. Knock another month off. How many months free rent? Free. It's not free, but how many free months of rent can I get with side hustles or what, this and that? That's kind of a way to look at things. How many electric bills can I pay? And then next thing you know, you're like, holy shit, I've cleared 6 months of expenses by doing this, this, and this, and this. Now you've got that much more to invest. Invest in yourself, learn a skill, take a class, things of that nature too. I know that doesn't get talked about a lot as much as, like the monetary investments. But investing in yourself and acquiring skills that may require a little bit of upfront cost to learn it from somebody or, take a trade school or something. But that skill will then pay, for life, potentially, depending upon what you learn with it. That self-investment can be a thing with some of the money you save as well. So let's not skirt that. And back to purchasing houses again. I know a scatterbrain. House hacking. I've mentioned it before on this channel, but it's a thing. If I were to go back, really, this one I can't really say if I were to go back because I got such great deals on my properties, and it was just a matter of circumstance and being in the right place at the right time. But like if I were choosing or looking for a place, I would look for like a triplex or a quad, something like that as my first purchased property, and live in one unit and then rent out the other two and basically live there rent free. Or even if you're renting a place and you've got 3 or 4 roommates and your rent is dirt cheap, maybe you're paying $300 a month, and you buy a triplex or a quad or whatever the case may be, rent out all the units. Don't even move. Just stay renting. Who cares? You're throwing money away. Fine, whatever. The rent that you're going to get from the units that you bought is going to be worth more or pay more, cash flow more while you're renting that place than it would be if you moved in one of those units and lived for free there because the other ones are paying that off. So keep that in mind too. I rent this place. I don't own this place. I rent this place. I own a duplex. I own another house. I cash flow those properties. If I were to move out of here, I pay very cheap rent. If I were to move into my duplex and kick one unit out, the other unit would pay for insurance, rent, or mortgage, insurance, all that stuff, and I'd be living for free. However, my second unit that I rent out brings in more money than I pay to rent this place. I rent out that unit for more than I pay in rent. So, I would be losing cash flow if I were to move out of here and into there, even though I'm throwing money away by renting the house that I live in. So, keep these things in mind. A lot of little tricks, but again, first and foremost, cut your expenses. That's the easiest thing to do. Anybody can do it. Getting to a point where you're earning more money takes a little bit more legwork, but there's certainly ways to do it and get out there. But cut those expenses first. I think I've rambled mostly. If you have questions, put them in the comment section. I'm sure as much as I talked here, I still probably missed a lot of things that after I hit stop and upload, I'm going to be like, fuck, why didn't I say that? So feel free to ask questions. Anybody who listened to this long or watched for this long, I'm glad you heard me out. I really, again, I'm not an expert. I worked my way up through this. I didn't have a motherfucking thing when I moved here where I'm at. When I left Florida and moved here to Tennessee, I had an overheating PT Cruiser and like $200 in the bank and a weight bench and some weights. And I've got a lot more than that now. Like I said, I could feasibly right now, if I sold out all my assets, cashed out everything, I could go retire in like Thailand or Vietnam. And I don't want to. Like, I want to retire here. Maybe. I may take a trip over there and see what it's like. But my plan is to stay here. And East Tennessee is kind of one of the lowest cost of living places in the United States anyway, and I like it here. So I can probably make that work. But hope you guys listen to this. Thank you for asking the question. Peace!